Hello, financial professionals. I'm Bill Anderson, Wealth Strategist with E4 Insurance Services. Welcome to our video log we call The BREW, Building Relationships Every Week. I have the pleasure of hosting for the month of January and very much looking forward to these 4 recordings, and especially today. It's going to be fun. So thanks for joining us. If this is your first time on The BREW, we like to start out the BREWcast with today's national days. It's a little corny, but it is kind of tradition on The BREW. Today is National Bubble Bath Day. It is also National Take the Stairs Day. And the third one is National English Toffee Day. So as you're running up the stairs to your bubble bath, don't forget the English toffee. Okay. On today's BREW, we're kicking off our 2025 marketing lineup with estate planning, being our focus for the month of January. We're excited to welcome nationally known attorney Kevin Crouch, JD, to this special BREW. We will discuss what's new and happening in the estate planning world, including what Kevin sees in the future on everything and all things estate planning. All right, I encourage you to use the chat box or raise a hand to ask any questions. All attendees are entered into a drawing for a CE voucher and a Starbucks gift card at the end. So stick around, don't hang up early. All right, so Kevin, thanks for tuning in today. I know a good warm-up question is always describe yourself, your practice. I know you live in Savannah, Georgia. Yep. You're with the law firm Meyer and Sayers, say that the right way. What else can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah. So, you're exactly right. I live in Savannah. I am a partner at Meyer and Sayers, which is a boutique estate planning law firm. We solely specialize in estate planning, probate administration, trust administration. A lot of our clients are small business owners, so we do quite a bit of corporate work, but that is usually involved in working with their estate plan. I grew up in Savannah, went to law school in South Carolina, and then while I was in law school, I met girlfriend then, wife now, who lived in Savannah, and my intention was to move to Charlotte or to Charleston or somewhere like that to start my practice, and she told me if I wanted to stay with her, I was moving back to Savannah, and we've been married for 8 years now. So it was, the right choice.
Congratulations. Sounds like the right decision.
It was the right decision.
Yeah.
Besides that, I'm licensed to practice in both Georgia and South Carolina. So, I jump across state lines quite a bit. Very different laws for both. So, have to put my South Carolina brain on when I'm over there and Georgia brain over here. Besides that, I just enjoy everyday things that everyone else does, golf, fishing, and try not to make work too much of my life.
And I've come to hear that golf is a pretty major deal for you. You're one of those super good golfers, right?
I don't know. I think that's all relative. We have against some other people, and I do not look good at all.
Says the one index guy. Okay, continuing on. We've all looked on Google and we've looked at, what are the 5 to 10 questions we should ask an estate planning attorney, right? But from your point of view, what are the top 2 or 3 questions that somebody should ask you before they hire you?
The first question that I want people to ask me before they hire me, especially in that first meeting, which is more conducted like an interview because I'm asking questions of them. I'm trying to learn about them and what we would need to do is, I want them to feel comfortable enough to ask me any question that allows them to feel comfortable enough to disclose sensitive and pertinent information that we are going to need throughout the estate plan. So, really, I kind of try to make it a very personal type meeting. I'll talk about myself. I'll talk about my family, my situation, and I want them to ask questions based off of that. Because one of the most important aspects of estate planning is I need to know, not only the basic information, what assets you have, what are we trying to accomplish here, but I need to know what the skeletons in the closet are. And so if they're comfortable with me by asking questions that, I'm going to reveal a bit about myself, then I have a feeling they'll be a little bit more comfortable and they'll reveal some intimate aspects of their life. The other question is I want them to ask, what the process is. It's like I said, the first meeting really is an interview. And to kind of jump off, I want them to know that I'm going to be interviewing them. I'm going to ask very personal questions. I'm going to try to lead the conversation in a certain way that has them disclose things that they may not tell their closest friends. But it's important to me to know it before we put a plan together. And then I want them to, as I've explained the process, they're going to know that the next step is developing the estate plan. And it's sending drafts to them so they can review it. And I want them to ask questions based off of those drafts. And if they want to make revisions or if things don't look right, client expectations is a very important aspect of any attorney's job. And if they ask me questions, and I'm going to explain the process to begin with, but if they ask me more questions about it, then I can manage their expectations to truly understand how this is going to develop, how we're going to put the plan in place, and what all of that is going to entail.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So in our prep meeting for this brew today, we talked about, the entertainment, if you will, in the last 3-4 months of our country and the election process, right? But, because of the political change that's happening in DC in the next couple of weeks here, your views of the gift and estate tax levels and the possible sunsetting or not at the end of this year, just give us your thoughts, please.
Well, first, that's a loaded question, Bill.
Of course.
We first, when the Obama administration first increased the estate tax exemption, everyone in the estate planning world was kind of flabbergasted. It was an amount that we never thought we'd reach. And then when the Trump administration one-upped them and really took it to a new level, again, everyone was kind of surprised, but we knew with that there was the sunset at the end of 2025. And we've all been kind of working towards that sunset since then. We fully expected it to eventually sunset, for the exemption to drop back down to pre-Trump administration levels, adjusted for inflation. And then we had the 2024 election and Trump got elected again. And so there's differing opinions. My opinion, and again, this is purely an opinion because if I could predict it, then I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. But my opinion is that is going to sunset. For them to be able to push this through and extend the estate tax exemptions, what they're at right now, it's going to take a fairly large bill to get all of that pushed through. And we've watched how Congress has operated in the past years. Nothing is easily done. I see it getting to the end of 2025 and us having a sunset and it dropping down to pre-Trump administration levels. That said, two of my partners fully expect it to be extended. They're looking at it from another standpoint that, President-elect Trump has a Republican Congress, and he's going to be able to push that through and get it pushed and extended, which is beneficial to a lot of people. Not necessarily. I mean, the tax standpoint is beneficial to me, but the estate tax exemption, I'm not overly concerned with that. Right now, we are planning both ways. When we were talking about it yesterday, one of my partners actually said, let's say they do extend it. It's probably going to be put into another sunset provision where eventually it's going to drop back down. And our clients who have a potential risk with the sunset, they're going to get that extended, 10 years or 5 years or whatever, however long they ultimately decide to do. But all we're really doing is kicking the can down the road because we're going to have 10 more years of growth and then still the same problem when that comes to pass and it does sunset. So we're treating it that it will sunset. If it doesn't, that's great. That just gives us more time. But we still want to meet with our clients and discuss the potential, that if it does sunset and it puts you in a difficult position or a potential tax liability, what can we do now? I'd rather plan early and be pleasantly surprised than not plan early and be very, very disappointed.
Yes. Thank you for the extension of that answer, because I was, thinking about typing up in the beginning. Kevin Crouch says it's going to sunset. Plan accordingly,
Opinion.
everybody.
100% opinion. Do not.
Exactly. Thank you again for your thoughts. So let's talk about SLATs, spousal lifetime access trusts. They've become very popular in the last dozen plus years. How do you and your firm, how do you utilize a SLAT?
Well, we utilize SLATs as a way to reduce the gross estate of one of our clients while still allowing them to have indirect access to those assets that they've moved out of their estate. Usually when we meet with the client and we discuss SLATs, the pros are exactly what I just said. We're going to reduce the size of your estate, which means we're going to lock in the value of the SLAT. So any appreciation is going to be tax free. We're going to add in some creditor protection because this is no longer, it's an irrevocable trust. We've protected those assets as well. But then we have to jump into the cons of the SLAT. And for anyone that doesn't know, a spousal lifetime access trust. So keyword there, spouse. Whenever we implement a SLAT, we have to fully advise the client that if we do this and we fund it and your spouse dies earlier than you were expecting, you've lost that quote indirect access to the funds. The spouse is not going to be there to be able to pull money out to make distributions. It is then going to move over to the remainder beneficiaries, typically the children. And if that is funds and assets that you were planning on for your continued living expenses, you may end up losing that. Even worse, if your spouse files for divorce from you. And that's one that always kind of, the ears pop up, especially with younger couples that are in those early days of marriage that, have done well, but they don't have the 40 years under their belt of bothering each other that they know they're just going to be just fine. That if your spouse divorces you, that SLAT was created for their benefit. They're taking that with them in the divorce. And that is a very, very large con that, a lot of clients will then balk at and say, I don't want to go down that path. I actually had a client last year, young guy, has done very well very early, and his advisor was advising for a SLAT, and he came in and we sat down and we went over the pros and cons. And the moment I got to divorce, he said, I don't want to do that. Never mind. But we do implement them. We implement them as a way to help reduce the gross value of a client's estate, while still allowing them to have some sort of indirect access to those funds. It's one of the most beneficial tools we have at our disposal because you're not just completely losing that access.
Thank you for your thoughts on that. Appreciate it. So a lot of the advisors on this call, this BREW, are money manager types, right? And because of that, the question is loaded for them to listen up and hear your response. The Cure Act 2.0, and what that means to qualified funds in the estate planning process. Continue. Sure. Yeah, it's kind of an open question, right?
Yeah. So, Secure and then Secure 2.0, which provided a lot of clarification on some issues that questions that we had in our world. Probably the most important aspect of the Secure Act is it removed the lifetime stretch out for qualified plans. We all remember pre-2018 when you could name a child or a grandchild as a beneficiary of a qualified plan, and they would do their IRS calculation in terms of your life expectancy after the death, and you would get a new, lifetime expectancy. you'd have to take an RMD based off of that, but you'd still have to stretch out. There was no requirement to take it out. That's obviously been removed, and I am sure everyone who's attending this probably understands the 10-year rule. But it has changed a lot in our world because a lot of clients who wanted to name children or grandchildren as beneficiaries of certain assets. A lot of times we use those qualified plans as the tool to move some money over to them because it could act as their own personal retirement plan. It was deferred, tax deferred money that would sit there and grow over their life expectancy. That no longer is the option. And so now that we have the 10-year rule, we have to approach it in a very different manner. And we have to think a little bit more, I'm trying to think how I want to say this exactly. We have to be a little bit more intelligent in how we approach how the beneficiary is going to remove the funds. A prime example is if we have two young adults, maybe say 22 and 25, who are in furthering education, maybe going to law school or med school. They're the beneficiary of a qualified plan. They have 10 years to take it out. Well, right now their income level is low, not making any money. Their bracket is about as low as it can be. Now may be a good time to yank a bunch out. Keep the tax consequences low, because once they graduate and they get that first higher paying job, if they've waited and they've kicked that can down the road until they get to that point, well, they may end up actually having to pay more in tax on those qualified assets than if they would have taken them out earlier. The opposite could be said for someone on the end of the spectrum in their work life. If they have a high income now, but they're looking to retire in the next 2 or 3 years, they're the beneficiary of a qualified plan. They may just sit back, only take the RMD the first couple of years and wait until they reduce their taxable income by retirement. And then they pull out big chunks towards the end of it. So a big thing with Secure 2.0, there's not a whole lot we can do from the estate planning aspect of it. People want to name who they want to name as their beneficiaries, but we like to work really closely with the advisors and thinking intelligently through, hey, when do we want our clients to pull this money out? Do we want them to sit on it a bit longer? We know they have to take the RMDs. Secure 2.0 told us that, but they don't have to take the full amount out within 10 years. And we want to really think through it and develop a good plan based off of that specific client's circumstance of when are we going to take this out. And that's been the biggest change that we've had. And it's, it is a change, and we just have to develop it.
Well, thank you for that. A little commercial. Next week we'll be talking to an accountant, and we'll ask that same question. And then in weeks 3 and 4,
the answer's different.
no, it's going to be the same. But weeks 3 and 4, we're going to actually show financial products and how to basically do that with a couple of examples. But Kevin, knowing that our audience is primarily advisors, from money managers to insurance professionals, RIAs, IARs, I say that, hard to say that the right way. When you're looking to partner with an advisor, what do you look for in the types of clients or the quality of the advisor? Who do you want to work with?
That is a very good question. I work with a lot of different advisors all across the Southeast. One of my favorite aspects of working with an advisor is one that comes to the table with just a basic understanding of estate planning. I don't expect any of them to be experts or to want to come through with implementing certain types of plans or to know the tax consequences of this or that, but a basic understanding, because what that allows is for me and the advisor and the CPA and whoever else is on the team. We like to develop a team approach to our clients. Whoever else is on the team, for all of us to work together to implement the best plan possible. The CPA has what they're doing, and the advisor has what they're doing. And I don't want to implement any sort of plan that undoes what they are trying to accomplish. And so if we all have a working knowledge or at least an understanding to ask questions when they maybe don't understand something I'm presenting, because I'm going to ask the question if I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish. That's why they have that job and I have my job. If they at least have a working knowledge of estate planning, then it allows us to really fully support our client, approach it as a team, and work together to make sure we put in the best sort of plan. I also, love working with advisors that, I don't want to say this, that, once we do set up the plan, I will work with the advisor after we've signed the documents, we've set the plan in place to make sure that, the estate plan is just the plumbing. We got to fill the right buckets to actually feed it the right way through. A lot of advisors, and it's becoming more commonplace, which is great, already understand what we're trying to accomplish, and they know what kind of designations or TODs or whatever we're trying to put on certain accounts or assets. And they can assist me with that. It makes my job a little bit easier. So that's another thing I look for.
Good. Yeah, actually funding the trust, right? I mean, how many people do we bump into where they got this beautiful trust document and there's nothing in it?
Nothing.
Yeah, kind of scary. Well, okay, last question, and you may not have an answer to this, but are there any questions that we haven't asked today that you feel are important in the estate tax arena of today?
Not necessarily right off the top of my head. I like for clients, for advisors, for CPAs, for anybody I'm working with in a professional standpoint, if they do have a question on any of these different tools that we utilize in our world, revocable trusts, different types of irrevocable trusts, I like for them just to ask me. And it doesn't have to be in a professional setting where you call me while I'm at work. I mean, I have people when I'm having dinner come up and say, "You do estate planning, right?" Say yes, and they say, "What's a revocable trust? What does that even mean?" And I like to explain it to them. And so, a lot of the people that are going to be on this or that are going to watch this, they probably already have a working knowledge of that. But I just want people to, if they have a question, to ask me. If they don't think they have, quote, an estate because they're not worth $20 million, to ask me if they do have an estate, because most people do. A lot of young families with young kids, they have an estate, they own a house, they have different accounts or whatnot. They need an estate plan. The consequences of not having one's fairly dire. And that simple question of, do I need an estate plan? Go to whoever you want, utilize any attorney, get on, whatever the online will preparing website is. My dad did it once, which I thought was funny. Get on that, but you need to have a will, especially if you have kids or a family or someone who's dependent on you. You got to have something in place. So I just like for people to ask me, do I need this? And I will nerd out after that and explain to them why they do or why they don't.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And Kevin, just thanks for your thoughts, your views, your expertise today. Very much appreciated. If anybody in our studio audience has any questions for Kevin, please type them in now. While we wait for any final questions, I'd like to remind you that today's brew and our entire library of these vlogs are recorded and shared on our brew page on our website at, I shouldn't have to say this, right? www.e4.insurance. The www just shows my age, but today's recording will be posted on our brew page, added to our library, as well as being emailed out to many advisors later. Now, for our giveaway, Kevin, pick a number between 1 and 67, please.
23.
23. All right. So 23, I'm going to go over here. The winner of that, Jeff Rathmanner. I know you. Thanks for being in the studio audience today. So, Jeff, you're going to be getting a CE complimentary CE voucher and Starbucks gift card coming your way from us. Next week on The Brew, we're going to continue with estate planning. Join me and an industry accountant expert, CPA John Polsky, to discuss what he thinks is ahead in the income tax planning part of the estate planning world. So thanks, everyone. And Kevin, again,
Bill, we do
thank
have
you.
a question really quick.
We did have a question. I
We
can't
do
see.
have a
Lay it
question.
on me.
Steve
Go for it.
Walker. Yeah. If I am doing a SLAT for both spouses, I'm not doing it in many cases. It's fairly uncommon, especially with the exemption where it is today. Much more common 10 years ago, but in today's age, it's much more common just to do it for one spouse. If I am doing that, timing, funding differences, your question is right on the nose, to make sure that we don't have the reciprocal trust auction issues there, and that we don't just immediately move those assets right back into the donor's estate. We want to do things like fund it or create the SLATs in separate years and fund it with different assets. We want the documents, they cannot be mirroring images of each other. Whereas one spouse may have a limited power of appointment, the other spouse may have no power of appointment, where one spouse may be entitled to all income, the other one, it may be discretionary, different trustees. So we make sure that the documents are different enough that we're not going to run into an issue with the IRS and basically undo all the work that we did do in putting it together. That's, very important. And a lot of the things that we can do is just creating and funding them at different times. It doesn't show that, we're doing that where they're going to have those beneficial interests back and forth, where the IRS would take the position that we really haven't done anything. But yes, that is I'm not doing them as much anymore, but when I do, we absolutely make sure that there's a lot of differences between the two SLATs.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. And the question, just for the recording, I had to look up the chat box, right? Are you doing SLATs for both spouses in many cases? And if yes, what are your recommendations on the timing or the funding of the differences? So, Kevin, thank you for your thoughts on that. And then sometimes, I've heard attorneys, they want to put, if they do two SLATs, they'll do one in one calendar year and the other one in the next calendar year, right? Just for tax purposes.
Yep, we've done that before. Just funding them in different years. So there's separate gift tax returns that are filed. The gift tax returns aren't filed in the same year. Anything we can do really to kind of separate the two documents and remove that interest from the IRS. That what are we really doing here?
Yep. Awesome. Thanks again for your time. Hey, could you give everybody your phone number in case somebody wants to dig deeper and possibly hire you as a part of their team?
Absolutely. Yeah. My direct line is 912-721-2733. And again, Kevin Crouch and partner over at Meyer and Sayers.
On the recording, we'll make sure we got your email on there. So thank you. And everybody, hopefully we'll see you in the next Wednesday for the recording if you want to be part of it. Otherwise, get into the BREW on the website and watch these things. We try to add value whenever possible. Thanks again for everybody's time. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.